It's so refreshing to have a press secretary that is confident, owns the room, and is an advocate of truth and transparency. Carolyn Levitt's comment about influencers and podcasters was one of the most exciting things I've seen in quite some time, especially in my neck of the woods.
This White House believes strongly in the First Amendment. We welcome independent journalists, podcasters, social media influencers, and content creators to apply for credentials to cover this White House. And you can apply now on our new website, whitehouse.gov/new media.
POTUS and the White House are paving a clear path for creators like myself to report on the new White House governed by the new administration. I immediately submitted my credentials, throwing my name in the hat. However, being a small fish in a big pond, I'll keep my fingers and toes crossed for a response. And if you're a creator aiming to do the same, I'll be sure to copy the link in the description below. But what the press secretary reaffirmed was that the world is shifting digital, catering to cutting-edge social media platforms and gravitating towards network marketing effects. In this new world, we as individuals have the power to become not just our own banks, but our own businesses, our own bosses. What I mean by that is using a platform like Impact, we as creators can support the brands we trust and love through social media marketing, tapping into entirely new ways of monetizing ourselves with endless possibilities. Impact is the go-to platform for we the people to connect with the hottest and newest companies on the market who are revolutionizing their respective industries. Through Impact, I'm able to partner with my personal favorite brands like Link2, my go-to for pre-IPO investments, or Uphold, my trusted application for investing in cryptocurrencies like XRP. And then on Impact's platform, I can even market the platform Impact itself. So if you're a creator trying to generate a new source of income or a business owner looking to tap into these new channels of marketing with a global reach, come talk to me. Or better yet, click any of my trusted affiliate links below. They're all empowered by Impact's cutting-edge affiliate marketing platform. Moving on, Fed Powell made an appearance this week talking about their goals with inflation, aiming to keep these figures around 2%.
Inflation has eased significantly over the past 2 years, but remains somewhat elevated relative to our 2% longer-run goal. Estimates based on the Consumer Price Index and other data indicate that total PCE prices rose 2.6% over the 12 months ending in December, and that, excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.8%.
What's so funny or not so funny about the CPI, aka CPI data that he references, is that these figures exclude food and energy. Meanwhile, food has increased by nearly 30% in the past few years only due to higher costs, supply chain disruptions, maintaining profitability, which has had ripple effects across the market. And many of us know that 30% is on the low side for specific products and food companies. And in some cases, we know prices have doubled across sectors, industries, and beyond.
In considering the extent and timing of additional adjustments to the target range for the federal funds rate, the committee will assess incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. We're not on any preset course.
Reassuring, isn't it? The central bank, representing the United States, has the power to shape our financial fate with the stroke of a pen and press of the money printer. Money printer go brrrr.
At a event in Davos, or to Davos anyway, the president said he'll demand that interest rates drop immediately. So I guess I have a three-part question. Has the president done this to you? Has he made that demand? Secondly, what is your response to that? And third, what effect, if anything, if any, does a president making these kind of remarks have on policy?
I'm not going to have any response or comment whatsoever on what the president said. It's not appropriate for me to do so. The public should be confident that we will continue to do our work as we always have, focusing on using our tools to achieve our goals and really keeping our heads down and doing our work, and that's how we best serve the public.
Can you just comment on whether he's physically communicated his demand to you?
I've had no contact.
As chairman of the Fed, don't you think it's in the best interests of your people to have the best relationship possible with your president, no matter if you agree with their policies or not? I would think Powell's role should be more bipartisan, or at least more bipartisan than my channel here. It's like we could smell the fear in the room. Grow a backbone, Powell. The M1 money supply, for those of you who may not know, is a measure of the most liquid forms of money in an economy. It includes physical currency in circulation, checking accounts, and other checkable deposits, which these figures have skyrocketed over the past few years. Around February 2020, the M1 was around $4 trillion. And by early 2021, so a year later, it surged to $18 trillion and climbing. Since 2020, the Federal Reserve has removed the distinction between M1 and M2 in terms of reserve requirements, which has significantly expanded M1 as it now includes certain saving deposits. This is why the move towards tokenized real-world assets, including bank deposits, is critical. We need this transition to open-source distributed ledger systems, and I believe transparency will finally be a thing rather than a thought. Speaking of moving on to one ledger, one network, one market, listen to President of the European Central Bank, Christine Lagarde.
You mentioned, rightly so, the lowering of barriers in Europe, and that was the initial project of the single market. We created, back then, a single market, that was the intention, where, nearly 400 million people could consume, travel, transact. But we did not finish that job.
She's most definitely referencing a one world market, a one world government, one world ledger, but she isn't referencing Bitcoin.
I think there is a view around the table of the Governing Council, and most likely the General Council as well, that reserves have to be liquid, that reserves have to be secure, that they have to be safe, that they should not be plagued by the suspicion of money laundering or other criminal activities. And as a result, I'm confident that reserves will not enter, that Bitcoins will not enter the reserves of any of the central banks of the General Council. I had a good conversation with my colleague from the Czech Republic, and I leave it to him to make whatever announcement he wants to make, but I'm confident that he's convinced, as we all are, of the necessity to have liquid, secure, and safe reserves.
Is Christine Lagarde talking her book on behalf of the ECB, or are they really not going to allow Bitcoin? I think there's some validity to her words, being the president of the European Central Bank, the largest central bank following the Federal Reserve. Christine mentioned that Bitcoin would not become part of the reserve, as she cited Bitcoin has been tied to money laundering and illicit activities, which makes sense because for those of you who haven't been in the room for that long, Bitcoin was used for sex trafficking, purchasing illegal drugs on the dark web via Silk Road, and other illegal activities. Also, there's no KYC AML protocols in place, unlike the XRP Ledger, which Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse has confirmed many times that they abide by anti-money laundering rules and regulations, being a highly regulated fintech with deep ties to the pristine XRP Ledger open source blockchain solution, empowering the largest financial institutions worldwide. Trump's bullish comment on the U.S. tech companies dominating the market is very bullish.
Under the Trump administration, we're going to unleash our tech companies and we're going to dominate the future like never before. And
being a contrarian investor myself, deploying buttloads of capital into the private market, specifically into technology-enabled companies like Ripple Labs, Circle, Uphold, among others, we're looking forward to a huge IPO wave incoming, thanks to the positive sentiment from the man in charge.
We are going to have the most competent people in the country in our control towers, not people that are there for any other reason. Although now, if you look, they've taken in the lowest numbers since my administration. The numbers are very low. And at that level, we don't need so much help. People know not to come because if they come, they're not going to make it in and they're going to be shipped out.
My heart goes out to those who died and were affected by the multiple plane crashes over the week. Trump mentioned that he'll do his best to make sure that the smartest personnel are in the control towers. Interesting comment, as I believe we're going to see an absolute overhaul of the FAA and the aviation sector as a whole. I believe we're at the cusp of utilizing self-flying aircraft, leveraging similar tech to what I've seen the drone delivery company Zipline utilize. Their drones are able to self-navigate, picking up on other aircraft in the area and making calculated decisions without human interaction. I'm thankful to be an investor in Zipline thanks to my former employer, Link2. Again, Link2 is my go-to platform for investing in the world's leading and most disruptive companies, all which are in stride to experience a liquidity event, aka an IPO, at some point in the near future. Shifting gears, Elizabeth Warren's one-on-one with RFK at his confirmation hearing for health secretary was nothing short of a meltdown for the senator. Elizabeth Warren seems to have lost her cool along with her moral compass probably years ago, and thanks to social media platforms like X and the XRP army, as of late, her contributions as senator are nothing short of questionable. Understanding she's taken hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations from Big Pharma, and from 2023 to 2024, it appears Big Pharma has made more donations to the Democrats than the Republicans. Go figure.
Can you just repeat the last part of the question? Can I commit
You're
to
not going
what?
to take money from drug companies in any way, shape, or form.
Who? Me?
Yes, you.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to commit to that.
Okay, good. That's what I figured. I said it's an easy question to start with. And I think you're right on this
I don't think any of them want to give me money, by the way.
You could publish your anti-vaccine conspiracies, but this time on U.S. government letterhead, something a jury might be impressed by. You could appoint
I
people
don't
to the
understand
CDC vaccine panel who share your anti-vax views and let them do your dirty work. You could tell the CDC vaccine panel to remove a particular vaccine from the vaccine schedule. There's a lot of ways that you can influence those future lawsuits and pending lawsuits while you are Secretary of HHS. And I'm asking you to commit right now that you will not take a financial stake in every one of those lawsuits so that what you do as secretary will also benefit you financially down the line.
Senator, you're asking me not to sue pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
Look, no one should be fooled here. As Secretary of HHS, Robert Kennedy will have the power to undercut vaccines and vaccine manufacturing across our country. And for all of his talk about follow the science and his promise, those of us who want to vaccinate his kids. The bottom line is the same. Kennedy can kill off access to vaccines and make millions of dollars while he does it. Kids might die, but Robert Kennedy can keep cashing in.
The only thing I want is good science, and that's it.
How about then say you won't make money off what you do as Secretary of HHS?
So who knows what she was thinking? The world's a stage, and her rhetoric regarding vaccines may have only hindered the pharmaceutical industry because market participants are already preparing for a hardening market as layoffs are already underway.
The problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies, it's in Congress too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry. And protecting their interests.
Oh, I thought that would go. No. I ran for president like you. I got millions and millions of contributions. They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from workers.
In 2020, you were the single largest
because I had
receiver of pharmaceutical money
from workers all over this country. Workers,
you were the
not a nickel from corporate tax.
You were the single largest acceptor of pharmaceutical dollars.
No, from workers in the industry.
1.5 million.
Yeah, out of 200 million. All right, but
this week I had the privilege of attending the National Writer Union's first meeting of the year. It was a very interesting and encouraging experience overall. I really didn't know what to expect since I've never gone to anything like this before. Since I recently secured my press pass for Donald Trump's presidential inauguration in DC last month, I received an invite from the chairman of the union. He asked if I'd be willing to share any work I've done as of late, so I sent him multiple links to my interviews at the inauguration, links to interviews with fintech executives tokenizing real-world assets, and as well as my coverage of the LA fires. Since the meeting was in downtown Los Angeles, he was more interested in hearing how covering the LA fires impacted me as a reporter. So I shared what I saw, who I spoke with, and even played the video in the background while I spoke to the room full of old-timers passionate about writings of all forms. Understanding my content is rather provocative at times and recognizing the room was very left-leaning, I was surprised when I received rather positive feedback from the group. They didn't get too political, but rather politely critiqued me as a content creator, providing thoughtful and neutral feedback. It was rather refreshing and encouraging being someone new to the space, especially being someone new to the Writers Union or a union of any kind outside my marriage. But what I took away from the experience being the youngest person in the room, it seems like the world needs more writers, more people willing to share what they know, what they see, or what they feel. Anyways, there were some incredible discussions from those who attended, and I'm looking forward to the next one, hopefully soon. On another note, I had the opportunity to sit down for lunch with one of the largest insurance brokers in my area. We met up at El Niguel Country Club, an exclusive, member-owned golf course well known by many. Actually, the gentleman is retired now and wanted to pick my brain of potential new investment vehicles or opportunities like crypto, where he could park his cash and have his money work for him while he's out on the golf course with his buddies. I told him to check out my favorite application for investing in crypto, which is Uphold. That's if he's looking to make self-directed investments into the space. I also mentioned he could reach out to an ally of mine, Jake Claver, for support on institutional custody via his relationships at Anchorage Digital. And I did my very best to tell him the ABCs of crypto, but being the fact that there's so much going on across multiple chains and networks, I more than likely confused him. Because when I brought up Link2, again, my former employer, and showed him the pathway for investing in Ripple Labs and other blockchain companies, I could see his wheels spinning. There are so many ways to get a slice of this pie. Here's the email I sent him ahead of our meeting with basic recommendations: who to follow, where to invest, what companies have caught my attention, and resources to use for self-directed investments, like the Descent Biometric Hardware Wallet, my favorite crypto hardware wallet that I've used to date. All in all, it was a great experience, and it rather helped me frame how I would navigate the discussion for the next person who knocks on my door for support. Last but certainly not the least, this week Ripple and the XRP community organized the XRP Community Day, where they discussed all things blockchain, all things XRP, and all things cutting edge coming out of the private sector. Ripple CTO David Schwartz made a couple of appearances, and his final comments highlighted what he thought was the biggest breakthrough coming to the XRP Ledger, and that is the tokenization of real-world assets like stocks, bonds, real estate, and so much more, all being digitized and accounted for on-chain, specifically on the XRP Ledger, a blockchain that has never been hacked or compromised since its inception over 10 years ago.
Interested to hear about what David is most excited about this year for the XRPL.
Well, it's hard to pick one thing. I think the I'll narrow it down to two. So one is tokenized real world assets. I think tokenized real world assets are going to do what stablecoins did. I mean, they drastically transformed DeFi. They made all kinds of new interesting things possible. Stablecoins are boring. You know, they're stable. And I think tokenized real world assets, most of them are comparably boring. And so I think they have that same explosive potential.
Shout out to the team at Zonics, a Ripple partner. Zonics has already tokenized $5 billion in assets on the XRP Ledger. The future of finance is already here, ladies and gentlemen. We're just waiting for regulations like the Stablecoin Act, which I believe will not only impact stablecoin issuers, but also broker-dealers, who will now have to abide by enhanced oversight, capital requirements, and customer protections. They'll also have to stay in compliance with securities laws and transmitter licenses rules. An example, having to register as an alternative trading system and comply with AML and KYC rules, many of which my former employer Link2 is in stride to achieve, being a trusted platform for pre-IPO investments. That's private securities. Link2 aims to tokenize their product offerings on the XRP Ledger. So if you're imagining digitized Ripple shares on the XRP Ledger, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Coming now, full circle. With that being said, it's time for me to get going. I've got a marathon to prepare for. The Huntington Beach Marathon is tomorrow, so I've got to stretch, hydrate, and get some rest before the big run. I already checked in today to grab my bib and score a tasty wave pulling on the rail like an XRP Now let's talk about Trump to their reserves. This is my first marathon ever, and I'll be running it with my little brother Ross. I'm really looking forward to achieving this milestone together. Again, this is my first marathon, and we'll see if there's a next one. Depends if I survive this go around, so pray for me, my XRP family. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, I'm off. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your weekend. Love you mucho.
So are we comfortable doing what we have to do? Yes. Absolutely, because we are mission-driven.